How's it going, guys? Welcome back to Fraud on the Telly. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the problem with Critical Role Campaign 3. Now, a lot of you might be wondering, Fraud, what the heck are you talking about? What problem with Campaign 3? It's great. And you know, I'd agree with you, Billy. But see, here's the thing. Not everyone else in the fandom seems to. And you know, to be fair, there are some glaring problems with Critical Role Campaign 3, especially when you compare it to the other campaigns. So in today's video, we're going to be breaking down a lot of the problems with Campaign 3, specifically what the online fan base seems to think is a problem, and seeing if do they have a leg to stand on. As always, if you enjoy the video or learn something new, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Before we get into it, just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers for Critical Role Campaign 3, as well as some minor spoilers for Campaigns 1 and 2, so consider yourself warned. Don't forget to check out some of our other Critical Role content, and let's just get right into it. So, you may not have noticed, but Critical Role viewership-wise has taken a bit of a dive since Campaign 3 introduction. Currently, at the time of recording, it is Campaign 3, episode 28, and around average on the Twitch viewership broadcast, it sits around 30 to 40k viewers. Now, this is still really good, obviously, and viewership numbers aren't the only thing that we can really go on, because Critical Role has their YouTube stream as well as the YouTube content and all that stuff. Obviously, people still love Critical Role, people still watch it. I'm one of them, obviously. But if you go onto sites such as Reddit, as well as Twitter, you'll see a lot of people airing grievances that they have with Critical Role Campaign 3. A lot of people who started Critical Role Campaign 3 and then got disinterested midway through. A lot of people coming in and out of Critical Role Campaign 3. A lot more that I've seen with Campaigns 1 and 2. Now, this is for a variety of reasons that we will go over in this video. But the number one reason, and I think the reason that explains most of the issues, is, well, pacing. You see, Critical Role Campaign 3 is extremely slow when you compare it to Campaigns 1 and 2. Now, this isn't an entirely fair comparison, seeing as Campaign 1 of Critical Role started midway through, because obviously the game was a home game before, but even if you compare it to Campaign 2, which started at level 1, they're moving incredibly slow. Now, there's a number of reasons for this. One, just the general pace of the game compared to the other games. Two, the fact that they've had several guest characters heavily integrated in the campaign. Three, the fact that they had a player character die and then have to subsequently introduce a new character to the party. And four, there's a heavy focus on player backstory in Campaign 3 as opposed to all the other campaigns. Now, I know that was a lot, so let's try to break it down little by little. Specifically, I think the biggest cause of this pacing issue is the character backstory. Now, when you compare it to Campaign 1, Critical Role didn't really focus on intense character backstory and really diving into this backstory until Percy's arc, which came around the mid to late 20s of episodes in Critical Role Campaign 1. It's interesting when you compare the two, because episode 28 of Campaign 1 is the Sun Tree episode, the episode where they arrive in Whitestone, and recently, just gone by, we've had Campaign 3 episode 28. Think of all the things that were done in Critical Role from episodes 1 to 28. They had the whole entire Craghammer arc, which was a good maybe 15 episodes. They had a mini arc in Vasselheim. They had all of the shenanigans that happened with the Briarwoods at Uriel's castle, and then now they're at Whitestone. When you compare that to Campaign 3, it really doesn't feel like a ton has happened. In Campaign 3, in comparison, by episode 28, we've touched on basically every single character's backstory in some extent, except for Orym, I believe. Matt, in the process right now, is currently juggling 3 character backstory stories all at once in the current setting of what's going on in Imogen, FCG, and Fearne. As well, when you compare it to Campaign 2, by episode 28, the cast had already acquired the Luxem Beacon, basically having this big overarching goal. One of the big major focus and story arcs of Campaign 2 is 1, returning the Luxem Beacon back to Xhorhas, and 2, resolving this war between the Xhorhasian Empire and the Dwendalian Empire. in comparison to Campaign 3, I don't know what the overarching story is. It hasn't been interlocked yet. It sure seems like it's going to be the Moon of Ruidus, if I had to guess. But to be honest, it could be something completely different. We just don't know. There's not really an overarching theme to the story right now. It feels like it's strictly character backstory narrative that is driving the story along, which is fine. I completely enjoy that. But this is one of the big reasons why it feels like it's so much slower and just not a lot has happened. That's because not a lot has actually happened. You just look at the territory traveled in Campaign 3, the journey across Marquette, as opposed to Campaigns 1 and Campaign 2 in the same time. By Campaign 2, at this point in episode 28, this is basically right after Molly died. They've gone almost all the way across the Dwendalian Empire at this point. As opposed to Campaign 3, they've just now left on Corel. As we said earlier, by episode 28 in Campaign 1, they've gone from Taldore all the way to Craghammer, down into the Underdark, back to Taldore, over to Vasselheim, and now all the way up to Whitestone. This alone makes it feel like just not a lot has happened. And to be fair, stuff has happened, but is it really big, meaningful, overarching themes? All in all, Bell's Hells have really only completed one major quest, defeating the Shade Mother, and that's really it. As well, there seems just to be a lot of dialogue, and at times Matt doesn't really get to push kind of the story forward how he wants to. It seems like he's suffering from a DM problem that us mere mortals seem to have when you have a whole bunch of stuff prepared, but your party putts around, dicks around, and you never get to it. Obviously, that's okay in your home game, but in a D&D show, that can create a little bit of an issue if, your viewer base starts to get a tiny bit bored. Now, I have to, again, make it clear. I don't personally feel a lot of these things. While yes, Campaign 3 is slower and at times can drag a little more, I don't mind that nearly as much. I like slow burn storytelling. I trust that Matt and the cast are going to tell an awesome, big, crazy overarching narrative. Already now in the last 5 to 10 episodes, there's been a real swing in events that have going on. It's really been fun, I think, delving into these characters' backstories, as in my opinion right now, the party dynamic of Bell's Hells is the best between all the parties, between the Mighty Nine, between Vox Machina. Bell's Hells, in my opinion, is some of the best characters and the most fun character dynamics to watch play out on screen. I don't really have a big problem with exploring these backstory elements between a lot of the characters, especially when a lot of the characters' backstories are absolutely nuts. I mean, compare a lot of the backstories of Bell's Hells to Vox Machina, and it's just like, wow, oh my god, it seems like everyone was trying to one-up each other with creative backstories ideas in Bell's Hells. I really like it and find it interesting. But like we said, it does have its downfalls, as there is not a clear goal for which the party to push through. It seems that that is a big problem that a lot of the fan base have, where it feels like they can't get invested because there's just not this big story that they're kind of pushing towards yet. Matt still hasn't linked it all together, which he's probably going to, and at this point, like we said, it feels like it has to be Moon of Ruidus things. There's a bunch of other critiques that it seems like a lot of the fan base had of Campaign 3 so far. I know a lot of people weren't the biggest fans of the fact that Liam and Ashley had 2 returning characters, which frankly I find a little weird because Fearne is amazing, probably Ashley's best character, and I also really like Orym too. He's not the craziest character that Liam's ever played, but sometimes you just have to have this normal, everyday type dude in a party full of freaks because it lets your audience kind of relate to this character because they would respond to all these strange things happening around them as if we would respond to it. At least that's my take on it. Personally, I found that kind of weird. Then as well, there was the Robbie hate train followed by the Robbie hype train. A lot of people weren't too sure about Robbie being a semi-permanent member of the cast for a little while there, and then it felt like the tide turned and a lot of people were upset when Robbie left. What are you gonna do? The internet fandom is just absolutely psycho. This is why I don't even bother to have chat open when I'm watching the stream. Obviously, there's issues as well that were outside of really the control of the cast, such as the pandemic, but they did take a number of long extended hiatuses during this campaign. Obviously, there was the whole month skipped for EXU Calamity, which, don't get me wrong, EXU Calamity, great. And honestly, I think one of the reasons why EXU Calamity was such a hit was because of the pacing and compared to Campaign 3. But taking a month off of Campaign 3 like that is sure going to make not a lot of fans happy. While I was happy to experience EXU Calamity, it definitely made me divest a bit in Campaign 3, and I found myself having to kind of reinvest in it. Luckily, the story right now, in my opinion, is very interesting. I like all the character backstory and the kind of minutia and the theories of it. Y'all know I love a theory video, but I can totally see how certain portions of the fan base would probably be a little fed up with that. Obviously, it's their show, their game, they're gonna do what they're gonna do. I'm just a fan who likes to watch it at the end of the day, and I just appreciated it for what it is. But everyone's always entitled to their opinion. I understand why a lot of fans are upset. I think a lot of it is pretty valid. Obviously, people get a little too over-invested into these things because it's the internet, when I think a lot of times they just need to take a step back and just watch it and enjoy it for what it is and trust the process, as they say. But I found the idea and the topic very interesting. I mean, a lot of people are just, it's human nature, right? We're resistant to change. The fact that a lot of things have changed in Campaign 3 as compared to how Matt did stuff in Campaign 2 and Campaign 1 is just gonna make a few people hesitant in general, hence the idea of an extended guest character being such an issue, because people are just afraid of change. It's just how it is. Overall, I really enjoy Campaign 3. I mean, to think that it's been basically 10 years of watching Critical Role content at this point for me, and I still have a lot of the love and the investment that I had just as the same back when I watched that Journey to Craghammer episode live all those years ago, man. Like, the fact that I have really close to a lot of the same level of investment of interest in this thing is pretty wild. There's not a lot of things that I've loved for as long as I've loved Critical Role D&D, you know what I mean? When I think back to 10 years ago, a lot of the interests and stuff, the video games I played, the shows I watched and things, some of it's the same, but a lot of it's just not there. For me, I think that really goes to show how good the storytelling is and just how invested we can be. I think a lot of the critiques of Campaign 3 come from a good place. People are just fans, they just get too invested, and that's just how it is. But I think, like I said, a lot of it is pretty valid. I do think that Campaign 3 has been extremely slow and sluggish. There's a lot of times I find myself watching on 1.5 speed on the VODs. I can't say I really did that a lot in Campaigns 1 or 2. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. What's your problems with Campaign 3? Do you even have any problems with Campaign 3? I don't want to make this whole video bad about Campaign 3. If anything, I think there's a lot of stuff that Campaign 3 actually does better than Campaign 2 or 1. Like I said, personally, I find the party dynamic and just the characters themselves in the party of Campaign 3 vastly more entertaining than 1. Probably on par or even more entertaining than 2. I mean, I'd argue that a lot of the characters in Campaign 3 are the cast's best characters of all the ones that they've played throughout all of the campaigns. Maybe that's a hot take, though. I don't know. As always, if you enjoyed the video or learned something new, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. More Critical Role and D&D content on the way for you guys. Thank you guys, as always, for supporting me. I do appreciate it. Let's push our way to 3K subs. And as always, guys, I hope to see you in the next one. Stay safe out there. Love. Adu.